Hi, this is Conrad Zimmerman of FistShark Marketing, reminding you that you can help support our weird show with a small monthly contribution through Patreon. For less than a book of Dadaist poetry, you can Robot Avenue _Plank Arsenic. Just visit patreon.com/FistShark or click the big Patreon button at fistshark.com for more details. And thanks for listening.
I'm on board with the necessity of what we're doing. I'm just making a point while we do it that for everything that everyone says about how they don't need Big Daddy government making the rules and how they want less regulation, I have always been of the opinion that we need the government to oversee everything. Not necessarily, I don't want them to oversee us. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying they need to look after everybody because people can't look after themselves. I mean, that's why we exist anyway, because it's not like our clients can look after themselves. Do you think Dean Cain finds his own hot soup? I have to warm it up for him. He doesn't know how to operate a campfire. You'd think he'd know, he's been homeless long enough, but people don't look after themselves. I guarantee you this, folks. If the government disappeared overnight, it would be within 3 days. It would take 3 days for us all of us, to start eating poison berries. I'd forget they were poisonous. I need signs. I need signs and leaflets. And that comes from the government.
I can't agree with that. I don't think that that's true. If there weren't government, there would be people like us, there to help shepherd, there to lead, there to say, hey, have a Hostess cream pie.
I understand that, and I used to think the same way, but I've been reading a book recently, Walter Sullivan's Why You Are Shit, and it's opened my eyes up to a lot of stuff. Now, I realise it's election season. I realise the senior partners are relying on us to spearhead this year's new lobbying efforts. I'm going to do it because it's my job and I don't have any sort of social conscience. But, and I'm arguing from a purely philosophical point of view, without the government, and I'll quote Mr. Sullivan on this one, without the government, we would forget how cars work. They'd rust, and we'd try to drive dog carcasses and bones around, as if 'twere cars. Our residual memories would go back to the Flintstones, the earliest known point of human existence, and we would run on the floor with stone wheels attached to wooden frames, which, I'm reliably informed, despite the lies, the right-wing rhetoric of Trump and friends, you can't actually drive like that. You'd blister your feet at the very best, and it would weigh enough that you probably wouldn't even get it off your driveway. Not that we'd have driveways without a government, because those would collapse into the ocean.
I like to believe that people know what's best for them. You know, that they'll still continue to get up and go to work and bathe and, do their jobs. Because if there's anything that I can see having a great view towards the future in a way that politicians don't, it's business, you know? They want to be in business forever. They want to make all the money that they possibly can from all of the people at once. Where politicians, they're in power for 4 years at a time. Some of them have term limits. I mean, they're not invested in the future. They're looking to get out and get in with business. I say, let's just skip the middleman and go straight to private enterprise running everything, which is to say nothing being run.
My issue with that is the documentary Terminator 2 Judgment Day. Now, we all know what happened in the mid-90s. It was horrific. I saw a robot foot step on a skull. I don't want that to happen. That could have been my skull that the robot skeleton trod on. And then they had guns. Imagine, if you will, a robot with the strength in its foot to crush a skull, and also it has a gun. You don't have to imagine it because it happened in 1992 or 1993 or whenever that film came out. I'll Google it.
What'd you find? When did it come out? So curious.
I forgot. In the span it took for me to finish the last sentence, I forgot to Google it. And Conrad says we don't need government intervention. I can't even remember to Google things that I said I'd Google literally a second ago.
We do need the government to encourage our Googling, to remind us to Google, to enforce our Googling, to impress our Googles.
Exactly. If the government weren't here and private industry took over everything, who's to stop Walmart from replacing all of its cereals with poison berries? I'll have some Blueberry Crunch, please. We don't sell those anymore. We have Poisonberry Crunch. Is it delicious? It's deadly. Sounds great. I don't know what that word means anymore because there are no skulls.
Right, but then what do we do with the 12 warehouses of Poisonberry Crunch that we have? You see the problem. You see the conflict. You know, if there were no government there to stop us, we would be able to empty that warehouse and make a tiny bit of profit through a Walmart deal. That's all I'm saying about. That's why the Walmart deal is stymied. That's all I'm saying.
Here's the thing, though. We can still sell the Poisonberry Crunch. We just need the government to step in and put a very small label on the corner of the box that says, "Caution, contents poisonous." They'll still be sold, but we'll have made the world a safer place through government intervention.
And there's always the foreign market. I mean, there's different regulations for the international sale of poison. I'm sure that there's some territories where it's not only legal, but in fact standard. So there's a lot we can look into to try to get the best of both worlds with the government.
Shipping costs are just not worth it for grain products. Just not. They're way too expensive to export that. No. We've got to find a way to sell it somewhere in the continental United States or in Mexico maybe.
And I'm saying we can sell them. We can sell the poison berries, but we can't do it without regulation. We need to regulate the whole poisonberry market. Now, I know you're going to Washington next week to speak with various legislators about lifting the restrictions on the sale of poison berries. And I would agree with you to a point that right now there's a little bit too much control on poison berries. Okay? The whole get 7 days for a license to be able to buy a poison berry. That is a bit too far. I'm totally with the NBA on that whole thing. Let's lift some restrictions. Let's not make more laws.
The NBA? The basketball organization?
Exactly them. They're very interested in poison berries for some reason.
You're suggesting that I go in with a slightly more neutral berry control position because I gotta be honest with you. I think any sort of additional government interference or regulation into our work is just going to wind up costing us more time and more money. It's going to just make it harder to get these berries into the hands of people who need them.
But ultimately, who needs a poison berry? I realize the argument that the NBA comes up with. You know, the only way to stop a bad guy with a poison berry is a good guy with a poison berry.
Yeah, exactly. We should have every teacher in America with a poison berry in their pocket. You know, just in case. You know, you don't ever expect to use it. But in that moment, when it comes down to saving the lives of a classroom of precious children.
Here's the thing, I can't help but feel that if I liked my children, I'd feel unsafe sending them to a school where everyone's packing a berry.
I'm more questioning the decision to have one deadly poison berry will kill upon ingestion, intermixed amongst all of those not poison berries, and a sign that says, "This will stop the terrorists" above it. Eat up, children. Stop terrorism. How is that helping? I mean, if you're saying it's not helping, then should we do it some more?
Well, I'm still waiting for Craig to find the berry. That's, when Craig finds the berry, we could take the sign down.
How will we know when he found it?
Oh, we'll know.
I'm banking on us finding out. Look, we seem to be at an impasse on the whole berry thing. I do agree restrictions should be lifted, but not completely eradicated, which I realise is not what we're after as a company. But I just can't help feeling socially conscious about these things. And talking of socially conscious, I am fully on the side of control when it comes to the whole anal Kegel debate.
Which debate is that exactly?
Whether or not we as a people have a right to know whether the person we're talking to at any given moment is doing anal Kegels.
See, it's always just my assumption that everybody is doing their anal Kegels all the time.
Which is a good way to remain alert.
Right.
It's a good way to remain alert, but for me, and I'm just speaking from a purely personal standpoint here, for me, I can't help but feel that's at least 2 steps away from just out-and-out paranoia. I don't want to be spending the rest of my life thinking, is this person who's serving me at the Denny's doing an anal Kegel right now without me knowing? Now, I understand the pushback on that. Is it an invasion of an American citizen's privacy to have to divulge, or at least wear some sort of badge or have an alarm fitted that's letting you know, letting everybody know that an anal Kegel is in session at that particular moment? I realise we as an American people, we value our privacy. We value the freedom to do what we want within our own anus. But I feel sometimes the needs of the great outweigh the needs of the few. And in this particular situation, I feel like I and my fellow citizenry absolutely need to know who's squaffing their hole at any particular point.
Well, we have people who are trained to watch for people who may be doing Kegels in crowded places and things like that. The sort of person who could be doing a training exercise for something to come, so I don't feel particularly endangered at any time. But I think that it's every citizen's responsibility to be prepared for the time when they may need to employ their own anus in the defense of their nation.
Possibly. But I've got to push back on the idea that we have trained people. I've seen them. They're in the Denny's. They've got the uniform, the helmet. It makes me feel marginally safer to have a Kegel patrol at Denny's. But, and again, I'm going to have to throw a fly in the ointment. You never know whether someone's doing an anal Kegel or if, accidents happen, maybe they didn't wipe themselves properly, or maybe they've got hemorrhoids, and they're just kind of squinting their brown eye a bit just to deal with an itch. Futilely, I might add. They're just going to have to go into a stall and give themselves a quick rub down. But that doesn't stop them from trying. Just try and clench the irritation away. And at any point, that could be someone thinking, oh shit, a Kegel's going down.
It has been frightening to hear about the underground Kegel camps training Keglers, to know that there's a Kegel movement, underground Kegel movement moving towards mainstream America. But I was waiting for the part where they told me what was dangerous about the Kegels.
Well,
I couldn't find that part.
Here's the thing, Paulson. Actually, do you mind if I call you Paul?
Sure, you could call me Paul.
It's just I knew a Paulson, and that's the anecdote. I knew someone else called Paulson. It's just easier if I call you Paul, mate.
Yeah, you don't want to have any confusion.
No, not at all. Absolutely not. But anyway, the problem with that is, I understand your confusion. Okay, we don't know exactly why it's bad or worrying or concerning. Some people just want to strengthen their hole. Some people just want to feel tight down there. But we've not researched the potential military application of a Kegel. We don't know, because we've never tried, how anal Kegels deployed in the field of combat will actually affect stuff or things or any other.
So it's an unknown unknown. It's a new frontier. We
Yeah.
need to tread lightly towards. Still, I mean, the worst that it could do is keep a butthole closed. That's
But
as
then-
bad as it gets, I think.
But then think from that. Think on from that. Let me throw a little situation at you. A little dilemma. Okay? Maybe this will change your view of things, okay? I'm a terrorist. Not literally. For the purposes of this, I am a terrorist. Okay? A white terrorist. Let's be progressive about this. They do exist. So I'm a white terrorist. Okay? Really white. And I've been racially profiled as is so often the case, at Boston Airport for being white, therefore might be a terrorist. I might have a poison berry, who knows? Okay? I might have a Bret Michaels CD. Scary.
Okay. Yeah.
Scary, right?
That's a little.
Okay.
Ugh.
But that's okay. We've got the TSA on board. They won't let me get on no plane. Because they're going to check. They'll make me take my shoes off. They'll flush out my laptop. But now it's time to stick a finger up my arse. Okay? See if you've got any berries in there. Any CDs in there. Huh? Any of Val Kilmer's leavings. Can't get in. I've been doing my kegels. That impenetrable fortress. It's colditz. Nothing gets in. Nothing gets out.
Nothing gets out. You're filled with feces. Then you're just packed with it.
Well, again, I could very well be a living dirty bomb. Kegel enough, fill it up. All it takes is one jump off it doesn't even have to be a very high step ladder. Kaboom. Biological warfare. All thanks to the Kegel. Now, there's no proof, as of yet, that any of that's possible. There's no proof that Kegels could be performed to the point where a TSA agent would break their fingers trying to get into my secret garden. But there's always a possibility. And where there's a possibility, there's a good reason to panic.
But I mean, possibilities are just everything. So if there's possibilities that enforcing the non-kegling, that's also dangerous. What if forcing people not to kegel causes just kind of an outpouring of whatever's in there,
Oh
and
my
there's
God.
no control at all?
Anything could come out. Okay. This is what I'm talking about. See, Conrad? Paul's got the right idea here. Like this is why we need to maybe work with the government instead of working.
Sure. All right, fine. There's a small minority of people who ignore their need to perform Kegel exercises to the point that their anuses become a little more than wet Cheerios.
I've never kegled. I'm terrified of what might tumble out. What if my whole ribcage falls out? And what if my ribcage turns out to be a terrorist? We've got skeletons living inside of us every single day, Conrad. You know how spooky they look. What if they're working against us?
I can't believe you've never Kegled. Not once?
I'm
Never.
I'm going to now that I'm worried that my skeleton might come out.
You should be. You've got to get in shape, man.
What if it spooks people? Where's the regulation on skeletons?
And where's the not regulation? Where's the regulation about the regulation?
What if they're good?
What if kegels and not kegels are both good and bad, and skeletons?
Do we destroy our skeletons? Just in case? Where do we draw the line? We've never talked. We've never. And I can't even believe that I'm saying this. We've never talked about the regulation of skeletons.
Well, if it weren't for all of this government regulation around private enterprise trying to engage in human research, we'd know the answer to these questions, right? But no, because we have a nanny state operating in this country, oh, well, we can't do the necessary research into living skeletons to find out whether they're good or bad. We just don't know. And it's because the government is preventing us from getting there.
And it's let's face it, it's because of bias. These skeletons running the government, they won't allow a full skeletal transplant because that gives up too much power, too much control. They're really in it for themselves, I think.
In fairness, Paul, in fairness, only 30% of the government is skeletal. Let's not have this whole panicking thing about, skeletons in the government, skeletons in the government. They still make up a minority of the actual governing body of America. Most of them are flesh and blood, or, one or two gargoyles.
There's a bias there. That's the point.
There's a bias there, but maybe that bias needs to be there. Like, who else will speak up for the skeleton? Not our skeletons, because they're covered in all our meat.
They said the same thing about apartheid-era South Africa, though. They said the same thing about the minority government and the skeletons covered in meat. And look how that turned out. It took years. It took Nelson Mandela's skeleton to finally overturn the evil ways of that government. Where's our Nelson Mandela skeleton now?
That's besides the point, all right? We don't need another Nelson Mandela skeleton. I think he had some nice ideas, but he took them too far. My issue is, we have medical restrictions, but has that ever stopped Dr. Nightscream? Really?
But that's because he does all of his work here, and we have the city of Boston largely protecting us. I mean, and it's because we pay all of this money to government that if it didn't exist in the first place, we wouldn't need to protect us from it. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, it's a lot like organized crime, and that, I view, is a business. Right? If they were just upfront about it and saying, hey, this is a protection racket, I'd be totally more understanding about it. If they just showed up at the door with the guys with the guns and said, hey, give us the money or something bad might happen to your place of business, that would at least be honest to me. But no, they have to go and worm their way in with all their little rules and things like that. And it's just not, it's not reasonable. And so then we have to pay all of this money to the government to get them to ignore us for the purposes of those rules. It's a scam. It's all just a scam.
It may be. It may be I'll walk with you down the pier as far as to say there is some dishonesty in government. Of course there is. But let me throw you this question. Let me put this in the dog poll and see if Jasper wants to chow down. Okay? Would our office be safer and have less Spidorpians in it if Dr. Nightscream was subject to a little bit of regulation? They're half spiders, half scorpions. They're as big as a table, and they're very pissed off. And I think fascists.
That was something I was going to ask. Do we know if that Spidorpian is still lurking outside the door? Because I feel like we've been in here for a really long time, and maybe it's left by now?
Yeah, I mean, we have been a long time. If we're talking politics, we must have gotten really, really bored. I don't know. Can we try throwing something at the door and seeing if another piece of the glass melts with the acidic poison from its barbed tail?
Well, let's see. Well, the doll's still down here.
Oh, the doll!
All right.
Yeah, throw that creepy little fucker.
Here we go. Ooh. Okay. Maybe a little bit longer.
Yeah, and I'm just saying that if there was some government ruling on the creation and unleashing of scorpion spider hybrids that were as big as a table and possibly racist, maybe we wouldn't be stuck in here.
FistShark Marketing is Jim Sterling, Conrad Zimmerman, and Paul Sincere. Theme music by Ben Rama. Additional music by Alazar Chand. Our editor is Alan Smithy. Get more episodes and learn how to support the show at FistShark.com. Follow us on Twitter at FistShark for more of our exploits. Complaints can be forwarded via email to fistsharkmarketing@aol.com. And remember, history is built on the bones of those who fail to shape it. Goodbye.